So, can a carbon copy of Freeza basically save the future that was destined for failure? Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, this story was birthed from the idea that the likes of Universe 6's answer to Freeza, Frost, might have had a better story told for him instead of the one we actually got in the main show. When we first saw him, we were led to believe that he was actually a force for good, a hero amongst the rank and file, a celebrity to look up to, who saw good in all and was the inspiration for many youngsters across the stars. However, that wasn't the being that we got in the end, sadly. No, instead of that compelling opposite of Freeza, we basically got a Freeza, an exact replica of the Emperor in the virtue department, only somehow more devious and quite a ways more pathetic than Freeza, far less ambitious, nowhere near as successful. We decided to go along with what we originally were hoping for Frost. Him actually being a good character, instead of the gibbering wreck that we got ultimately. Seriously, Frost is a complete chump now. In the last part of the story, Trunks and Frost managed to set aside their preconceived notions of one another and work together to help save the future in their own way. The Future Boy having to dig very deep to look past the similarities between he and Freeza, the latter whom he had turned into the contents of a meat pie not that long ago. And don't forget also that we have the likes of Cabba along for the ride as well, as Frost's partner in crime. With him around, Vegeta had some more interaction with his supposed pupil of training. Despite the fact that he had vowed to help Universe 7 and his friends, there was still the very lingering sense of doubt about himself that he had left in his own home realm. His enemies, whom he had worked with quite recently, were now seeking revenge, and the desire to bring him down as soon as possible, by any means necessary. When Frost awoke the next day, he realized that he had plenty to think about. The feelings of his home universe were clouding his thoughts, making him doubt his own value and strength. He couldn't let that get the better of him, he just could not, as that would make him no help to the prospect of Goku Black causing trouble in the here and now. When he did get up, he walked over to a nearby mirror and stared himself down. He couldn't let Sherbet and his goons get into his head from afar. Not right now. He had friends here and a job to do. Something he could quite rightly contribute well toward now. He could do this. That being said, things were moving at quite the fast click. Frost and the others did not have a large amount of time to wait and process the future events, as Whis moves into action in his own way. He decides that they should travel to Universe 10. When asked about this by Goku, the Angel has a very good idea of this mission, due to Whis having a certain idea about who Black might be, or who he might become. Frost and Cabba elect to go with Goku, Whis and Beerus, stating that with their knowledge of other universes, it might prove to be useful, or at least a little bit insightful. Beerus, though, was not thrilled about having more hangers ongoing with them. He wanted to keep this expedition a rather discreet one, as well as short. He had important naps to catch up with. But Whis was the one who was calling the shots, and he too had no issue with them coming along. "So long as you don't stick your neck out too much, feel free," said Whis quite calmly. And as you could probably imagine, Zamasu was also not really happy about the group being there. More mortals? Echoing Beerus' own grimace, who was trying his very hardest to look important and dignified, but looked as sour as the sourest of pusses. Gowasu, though, is able to stop his student from doing anything reckless and keep him from the main conversation for the most part, relegating his pupil to make his trademark's cup of tea. Because I could imagine that Zamasu, he makes a mean cuppa. Whis then goes on to explain to Gowasu about the whole Goku Black situation back in Universe 7, and how the evildoer has managed to get the time ring to go on and cause chaos after that. Gowasu, though, is quite surprised why they came here of all places. Whis then states that they felt a strange key coming from Goku Black that didn't reflect Goku's, and that was odd, that it might have originated from here, along with the time rings, because this is where they're kept. As the bigwigs are talking about these anomalies, Frost then notes, to his surprise, that Zamasu has no idea even what a time ring is. The Kai in training keeping an ear out though, as he is trying to pretend to busy himself away clearing the empty cups. Isn't he supposed to be a Kai or something? Cabba looks to Zamasu. Yeah, I guess. He does look quite confused. He's meant to be a real prodigy, or at least that's what I've heard. He should know things like this. Frost and Zamasu's eyes then meet, and the Frost Demon looks away frantically. You know, that kind of moment. It's a bit awkward. He's pretending to resume his gaze on Whis, but Zamasu's expression betrays the actual fact that, yeah, those two probably heard the exchange, and they then were mocking him. While the gods are going to check on the time rings, Beerus and Whis tell the others just to be at ease, but just make sure that you don't break anything. Goku is allowed to fight Zamasu, Gowasu seeing no real problem in this, much to the Kai's dismay. But Gowasu is also curious to see how his pupil would stack up against Beerus' candidate. It's a nice little oddity, that. But Goku then explains that he isn't a candidate exactly, he's a friend of Beerus. Beerus? Making friends? That's quite the surprise. The old Kai chuckles to himself. Master Goku really likes to fight, says the Frostling. Cabba nods. Challenging gods? This guy is something else. You can't hold a candle to them. Vegeta glares at them both, despising their adulation toward the clown, and he decides to accompany Gowasu, Beerus and Whis, just to get away from all this sucking up going on. The fight continues. It goes on much like in the original, and Frost ponders if he had seen that fighting style performed by that doppelganger Goku before. He starts to squint, looking fervently at the battle. From what he could tell, based on his direct training with Goku, and there was a lot of training, something was definitely up. This wasn't a wholly new fighter he saw in Zamasu. Maybe there was something there, something to Whis' musing, but it's too early to point the finger at this one yet. And besides, who would believe Frost right now? They needed more substantial proof right now, as well as further confirmation from others, and most importantly, the good word from Goku stating that he too felt a similar aura from Zamasu. After making sure that the time rings, which were locked away far into the reaches of the abode, were safe, and not a single one was missing, the group, including Vegeta, returns to Universe 7, satisfied with their investigations. Goku and Frost get talking about the battle, the Saiyan pretty interested in Zamasu's potential. Wow, I've never fought a Kai that strong before. They're really improving. Usually they think that Frieza was the strongest anyone could get. That guy though, way better. Frost shuffles, feeling a little awkward. Am I stronger than Frieza? In that form of yours? Sure, but you got more in you. I can feel it. Frost allowed himself a little smile, but there was little time to wallow in this good feeling. When they all get back, Bulma has actually made all the necessary modifications to the time machine to allow some extra things to go on, including adding extra seating attached to the outer part of the vessel, in order to fit more people in and assuring that nobody is crammed inside the main console. Cabba and Frost help with the finishing touches, as they both have some basic mechanical skills based on their past wheelings and dealings and experiences, while Goku has his meeting with Zeno. After that is done, Vegeta, Cabba, Frost and Trunks are training together. Frost is using his training with Goku to gauge where he is in the pecking order amongst the others. Thankfully, he is on pace with them, and Vegeta has no excuses to call him a weakling anymore. But that doesn't mean that he would be as welcoming or more welcoming or as forgiving regardless. He still didn't trust him. All 5 of them are able to travel into the future together in one go. The pods are still not exactly comfortable, and look more like something you would put cargo in. It's still better though than what the original people got. As they arrive in future Trunks' timeline, they quickly discover that it really is no fun. Frost and Cabba are shocked by how bleak it looks. In all their respective adventures, neither of them had wandered to a world that was this far gone, so destroyed and desolate. Frost couldn't even begin to fathom how terrible Goku Black must have been if he allowed his own evilness to reign over a place so battered. Why would he want to rule over this? Before the Earth's resistance attacks the group, Trunks is able to convince them to hold their fire, that these men have no ill will. Frost shakes his head. He feels bad for these people, but the state of this defense force looks really pathetic. They won't be able to survive for long, in his mind. Those people need help. For once, Frost feels like he can easily show his swagger amongst these humans. However, before he can revel in this rare example of self-importance, Haru and Maki, those two children, approach the newcomers, being confused about Frost in particular.
Hey, mister,
Maki starts to say before checking herself.
who are you? Are you here to help us?
Frost pondered for a while, but then realised something. Oh, this is just like back home, the good times. Here, for the first time in forever, he could put on his hero face and act the saviour. Of course, little one. I am Frost of Universe 6, a famed hero and defender of the hurt and oppressed. Me and my partner Cabba here are here to help you against this evil man threatening your world. Oh, and those ones over here are aiding us too. He waved a hand in the vague direction of Goku and Vegeta, like they were an inconvenience. The kids seemed genuinely cheered up by this news, and internally, Frost hoped that he could actually fulfill that promise, not just for his own ego's sake. This time around, unlike his past self, he really did want to see these folks' lot improve. Now, of course, scared orphans weren't an uncommon sight in his line of work, but this time, this sight somehow hit harder. He truly felt their pain. Future Mai has survived, much to Trunks' relief, and Vegeta shares the banquet with the civilians that Bulma had supplied, allowing them to have some good food for a change. It had been many years since they could have had something so extravagant. Them having to live off meagre rations from the confines of past warehouses and limited food generation. Goku Black, obviously, making it hard to go on supply runs, or even to allow the basics of life to go about unabated. Meanwhile, the Saiyans and Frost have work to do. They need to hunt down the aforementioned Goku Black. All that so he may not bring these fools' lives into an even worse state. Sure enough, quite easily in fact, they find Goku Black monologuing above the destroyed city, and threaten him with a barrage of ki attacks, just to make the point that there is nowhere he can hide. That he got lucky earlier when the time strands pulled him back into the future. Naturally, given how this future clown looks like the present clown, Vegeta insists on fighting Black first. But our hero quickly discovers that Black is much stronger now than he was the last time they had met, and then Black presents Super Saiyan Rose to our heroes. Frost, looking at Goku, starts to feel a small sense of resentment toward him. If only they'd taken that fight more seriously, Black would have been gone, they wouldn't have had to come to the future. Black, here, now, wouldn't have improved so fast. How many transformations can this Saiyan come up with? Frost said with vitriol to nobody in particular, himself seeming surprised by this. He is even more shocked to see that Black's transformation isn't all about a sense of grandeur, it actually had some power going into it too. With seemingly little effort, he is able to take control of the battle and handily manages to stab Vegeta through the chest with a purple keyblade. Cabba is especially enraged by this new power and wants to avenge his master, but is ordered by Goku to back off and instead go to Vegeta and tend to his wounds. Cabba is incensed by this, wanting to defend his master more directly, but he ultimately complies because he's a nice boy, sensing that Goku is also being very serious at this point. Goku himself tried to put up a fight to his negative doppelganger, but he too gets knocked to the ground by Black. Despite this though, when he starts to charge the Black Kamehameha, Frost decides that now is the time to act. Do what he can to save his master. He tries to disturb his concentration with his own barrage of attacks. The fight then gets interrupted by the arrival of future Zamasu. Goku and future Zamasu then go on to fight each other on a pretty even ground, now that he has had some time to gather his bearings and get his stamina back somewhat. But then Black decides to chime in once more, he too having regained his composure from Frost's trickery. Frost then decides to even the odds even further. With Trunks tending to Vegeta's wounds, now Cabba decides to help his buddy. Black, however, is too much for the two Universe 6 friends. Making sure that Vegeta is safe and now in a stable condition, Trunks charges at Zamasu with his sword, only to discover that the Kai is immortal, his sword leaving no lasting effects on him. The fight doesn't go well for our heroes after that point, but they are surprisingly saved by a diversion from the soldiers, led by future Mai. Frost's eyes widen. His respect for that group had grown vastly. Despite their weakness in comparison to godlike beings, their experience shows no signs of being just as small. They clearly know how to handle Black, despite the disadvantage. Our heroes then have little choice but to evacuate. Due to Black being in hot pursuit, giddy with excitement, and not only having this new power, but also undermining the efforts of the past, them looking so confident when they had arrived. Oh, how that had turned on its head so spectacularly. They know that they have one place short in the time machine, however. Our heroes have to make a difficult choice. Someone has to stay. While Mai tries to be brave, stating she would be of more use in the future to aid the resistance more, Frost remembers the scared kids from earlier and the bleakness of this place as he knocks them out cold. Trunks looks horrified, snarling at Frost. "Frost, what are you doing?" screams Trunks. Frost turns back to them, a look of assuredness on his face, mixed with a tinge of fear. "I may be not as strong as you lot, but I'm rather durable. It's clear, isn't it? One of us needs to stay and draw their attention away from the civilians." The group's expression softens, and they process Frost's words, Vegeta looking rather intrigued. "Just promise me this. Come back as soon as you can." "I don't want to be stuck here forever," he smiles jokingly, as if he's trying to alleviate the somber tone of the situation. "Frost," Cabba seeming shocked. "It's okay, buddy. It's why we joined the force, right?" But little time to bicker. The heroes have to go with Frost's wishes, and seconds later, the time machine disappears, leaving Frost behind. When they had gone, Frost's expression immediately changes. What had he done? What was the point of that ridiculous bravado? All he had done was ensure his own death. If not back in Universe 6 at the hands of Hit or Sherbert or something, then here, in this godforsaken cesspit where nobody knew him. There's no choice. He's got to run away from here. He must flee. This could be even worse than whatever is waiting for him in Universe 6. Way worse. Stupid Cabba. It was all his fault for making Frost soft. And sure enough, Frost's fears rang true. Before he could fly as fast as he could, a familiar voice loomed overhead. "Oh look, they left one behind." Black smiling menacingly. Frost's resolve steeled up once more. Black, though, could sense his fear from within. But Frost put on a brave face. "You know, you like to talk big. If you think you can take me, you'll have to catch me." And so, with great gusto, Black started his pursuit of Frost, destroying a large portion of the city at the same time. This wasn't frustrating for Black. This was fun. Frost, though, doesn't get all that far. He seems to be cornered. So, he decides to change tack and attack Black head on, who in his hubris decides not to power up to Rose like he had done against the others. He seems to dominate our hero, his theory proving accurate. But luckily for Frost, the former space pirate still has some wits about him. When Goku Black grabs him by the neck, he uses his old trick on him, firing his poison needles at him. At first, Black doesn't notice the small stabbing sensation, thinking that this was just his body still reeling from the burst of power earlier. But seconds later, Black starts to weaken. Black's grip lessens, and Frost was now the one in control. "You puny little... what have you done to..." "I outsmarted you." And so, Frost shoots Black with his Chaos Beam right through the chest. But he doesn't kill him though. He didn't have time to finish the job, as it were, as Zamasu was right there to come to his friend's aid. As the Kai needs to heal his ally, and fast, Frost manages to escape. He angered them, and they will be looking for him. Maybe for days. But Frost is pretty good when it comes to escaping. He hopes that the rest will be back before the two evildoers will get him though. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Do you think this will buy Frost some time to give the Kais the runaround? What can the present party do to even the odds? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!